The world of enterprise tech, it doesn't just feel fast anymore. I mean, it really feels like we are all collectively trying to drink from a fire hose. If you're responsible for managing software spend or licensing or, cloud economics, you know the ground is shifting under your feet. And it's happening faster than most organizations can really adapt. We're looking at just massive commercial pressures. We're talking mandatory subscriptions, big vendor mergers, the dizzying complexity of AI. All of this is fundamentally reshaping the game, especially across the UK and European markets, right as we head into 2026. Now, these changes, they aren't just small technical adjustments. They create significant new risks, but also some enormous opportunities. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources detailing exactly where these pressure points are going to be most acute for organizations like yours. Our mission today is pretty simple. We want to give you the shortcut to being well informed. We're going to dive into the 8 clearest trends defining the future of licensing, SaaS, cloud, and all those vendor relationships. The goal is so you can build a roadmap, not just, react to crises. Okay, let's unpack this. What's the foundational challenge we're really facing here?
Well, the foundational challenge is pace, just like you mentioned. But the solution, and this is key, is proactive governance and strong commercial insight. These are about to become, well, non-negotiable strategic assets. The 8 trends we are looking at, they all point to one thing. It's the need to unify how organizations manage technology consumption and cost, to move away from those fragmented, siloed operations.
Let's jump straight into the commercial mechanics then, because the biggest story right now seems to be where the power is flowing, and it's flowing right back toward the major vendors. The first major shift we see is this rapid acceleration toward subscriptions becoming the only standard.
That's trend one, and it is absolutely critical. Perpetual licensing models are, for all intents and purposes, sunsetting in the enterprise space. 2026 is really the deadline year for a lot of organizations to complete that transition. So if you're holding on to legacy perpetual licenses, you have to realize that the negotiation dynamics have just fundamentally changed.
Okay, so if I'm a customer and I have a large inventory of perpetual entitlements, what's the dirtiest trick vendors are using right now to pull those back and, force me onto a subscription?
It's the erosion of support. That and the push toward bundled products. Our sources are showing that customers should expect fewer legacy entitlements to be honored, especially if they aren't actively using or maintaining them. And more often, you see vendors adopting these bundled-only product strategies. They force customers to purchase an entire suite, often with new cloud or AI features baked in, when they really only needed one module. That immediately increases the scope and, of course, the cost.
But the real kicker for vendor leverage, especially in the subscription world, has to be the data they collect, right?
Exactly. That's the critical detail of this trend. Vendors are strengthening their position through increased telemetry. And that just means embedded tools that continuously validate your consumption and detect non-compliance, all in real time. This isn't just, good product management on their part. It's a direct commercial asset. It gives them perfect visibility into your usage right before a renewal, which fundamentally strengthens their hand.
And that commercial leverage, which is powered by real-time data, is only amplified by trend 2, which is industry consolidation. And that shows no signs of slowing down. I mean, we're seeing intense M&A activity, private equity movement, platform consolidation, just right across the board.
And that's driven by the fact that large vendors, they need to fill these very specific strategic gaps, usually in cloud or AI or cybersecurity. So they acquire smaller, independent software vendors, ISVs, not necessarily to run them independently, but to fold their tech into a larger platform.
And if your organization relies on one of those smaller acquired products, you're in for a rough ride.
You are. The consequences are pretty much immediate. You're facing product restructuring or sometimes even outright discontinuation. But the most significant financial consequence is what the sources are calling price harmonization.
That sounds suspiciously like price hike.
In practice, yeah, that's usually what it means. When a smaller, regionally priced product gets absorbed by a global platform giant, they standardize the pricing across their entire portfolio. So you might be forced to transition contracts, move to a new licensing metric, and then absorb a significant cost increase just as part of that integration.
So going into a negotiation after one of these massive takeovers, what's the single most critical asset you can bring to the table to fight that harmonization?
Vendor strategy intelligence. It goes beyond just managing your current license state. You really need to understand the acquiring vendor's financial goals, their integration timelines, their long-term roadmap. Is this a strategic acquisition they'll invest in, or is it a defensive one they just plan to absorb in sunset? Knowing the difference is, well, It's necessary to navigate those contract transitions and prevent overspend.
That's a heavy lift. Managing vendor consolidation, the subscription shift. So if the vendors are consolidating their power, how exactly does the internal governance structure need to respond to keep up?
It has to evolve,
Ah,
and quickly. Which brings us to trend 3. FinOps influence is outgrowing traditional IT asset management. Cloud spend optimization, it's now a board-level priority. The number's just too big to ignore. And by 2026, FinOps will be the operating model of choice, securing a very, very strong foothold within technology and finance functions.
okay, let's clarify the relationship here. Because I think ITAM professionals might hear that and worry they're being replaced, but that's not really the case, is it?
Not at all, no. ITAM isn't replaced, it evolves. ITAM becomes a strategic partner. It focuses on that deep licensing intelligence, contract risk, governance, especially for complex non-cloud environments like your on-prem databases and data centers. FinOps provides the framework for the culture and the speed you need around those variable, highly volatile cloud costs.
The ultimate goal, then, is a unified view.
Precisely. Organizations have to establish these integrated operating models, models that seamlessly combine software, SaaS, cloud, and now the emerging AI cost management challenges. You need a single, unified view of consumption and total cost across the entire tech estate. If these areas are operating in silos, you will constantly be leaving money on the table.
And this whole movement toward integration, it's being accelerated by external forces, which is trend 7, increased regulation influencing buying and operating models. And this pressure, especially in the UK and EU, it's expanding far beyond just financial regulations now.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the regulatory landscape is definitely broadening. It's including operational and environmental accountability now. We're seeing major requirements increasing around, say, cyber resilience expectations, how resilient your software supply chain is, and this one's huge right now, AI transparency and model governance.
And the interesting overlap here is green ops, or environmental reporting. For the listener who hasn't really encountered that term yet, how does that functionally integrate with ITAM and FinOps?
Green Ops is the operational effort to manage and report on the environmental impact of your IT. Primarily, that's the energy consumption of your cloud footprint. It integrates because new mandatory EU non-financial reporting requires large organizations to disclose their Scope 3 emissions. And that includes the energy used by your cloud providers. So you can't just optimize for cost. For FinOps, you also have to optimize for carbon. This forces teams to leverage their cloud providers' sustainability dashboards and actively manage high-intensity workloads.
So organizations are now facing external mandates to prove not just what they use, but how they use it and what physical impact it has. That demands collaboration.
It demands total alignment. Procurement, technology, governance teams, they have to work hand in glove. Compliance today is no longer a yearly checklist completed by one department. It's an integrated operational requirement that spans the entire technology lifecycle.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into the technology that is, well, simultaneously driving these costs and also providing the governance solutions. I'm talking about artificial intelligence and embedded telemetry. We talked about vendor telemetry being a commercial weapon earlier, but this connects directly to Trend 5. And that is, audits are quietly evolving, they're not declining. We might see fewer of those traditional year-end episodic gotcha audits that tie up teams for 6 weeks, but the risk, it has only changed shape. Wait, you're saying the audit happens every day now, automatically?
That's effectively the shift. The risk is now continuous compliance monitoring, and it's embedded right in your contract. Vendors are moving away from manual spreadsheet-based audits toward automated analysis. We are seeing companies like Red Hat and Broadcom being cited in our sources as examples of embedding this kind of telemetry-based compliance monitoring directly into their software and their contracts.
So instead of an external audit team showing up, the system itself is automatically triggering flags when usage exceeds licensed parameters.
Precisely. Automated usage analysis triggers internal compliance questions, or even more strategically, it shapes the negotiation strategy for your next renewal based on that very precise, granular, real-time consumption data. So the shift isn't from auditing to not auditing. It's from scheduled scrutiny to pervasive, real-time data scrutiny.
This connects directly to Trend 4 then. AI changes the economics of software and cloud in two very distinct ways. First, AI becomes a governance tool, automatically surfacing optimization recommendations and licensing gaps. That's the hopeful side.
That's the immediate win, yeah. AI tools can analyze millions of data points, far faster than any human ITAM analyst could, suggesting where to right-size entitlements or where a virtual machine is wasting resources.
But the major new risk is the cost volatility that's driven by the AI workloads themselves.
This is where it gets really tactical for the listener. We're talking about the immense infrastructure required for GPU-intensive training and inference workloads. If a small research team unknowingly spiced their utilization by, say, 500% in a week while training a large model, that immediate nonlinear cloud spend can throw the entire technology budget into chaos.
This sounds a bit like a problem we faced maybe 10 years ago with managing physical server farms, just with a much, much larger potential cost multiplier. What makes AI workload cost modeling fundamentally different?
The difference is the speed of deployment and the elasticity. Cloud resources are provisioned in minutes, not months. The complexity is in accurately attributing and charging back highly specialized resources like GPUs, which are expensive and, frankly, scarce. Organizations need to rapidly build operating models that incorporate robust AI workload cost modeling. That means clear chargeback structures, consumption guardrails, and policies for validating optimization recommendations that are generated by the vendor's own AI.
For the listener who needs to start building this AI governance framework, let's say next week, what is step one? Is it a tool or is it a policy change?
It has to be policy first. Step one is establishing clear ownership and a cost validation policy. Who authorizes the use of high-cost AI infrastructure, and how do you validate the ROI of that spend? The tools always follow the policy.
Okay, let's pivot to another persistent pain point that's been fueled by this subscription explosion. SaaS Trend 6 addresses the inevitable result: SaaS sprawl and the rising challenge of managing all that waste.
SaaS waste is, well, it's endemic because it's so easy to provision and so incredibly hard to track. We see companies paying for thousands of dormant accounts or licenses that were provisioned for a short-term project and just never deprovisioned when the employee or contractor left.
So what are the priority focus areas for organizations trying to regain control in 2026?
It really boils down to two things. First, usage-based entitlement right-sizing, so making sure the user has the correct level of license for their actual activity. And second, leveraging identity providers for automated provisioning and deprovisioning.
It sounds like managing who has access and ensuring they only have it when they need it is the most effective lever to pull to control cost.
It absolutely is. Identity is rapidly becoming the primary control plane for SaaS cost management. If your identity provider is integrated with your SaaS applications, you can automatically reclaim licenses when an employee is terminated or changes roles. Organizations also need to apply commercial governance to vendors that are adopting new, really complex metering models, like session-based or event-based billing, which makes usage tracking even trickier to police.
Okay, finally, let's look at the market solution for managing this tidal wave of complexity. Trend 8 notes that managed ITAM and FinOps services are entering a new growth phase. This is a direct response to those skill shortages and vendor complexity we've been talking about.
Right. Organizations are realizing they just can't build all this internal expertise fast enough. The speed of commercial cycles, the rapid sunsetting of licenses, the frequent vendor takeovers, it all pushes organizations toward co-managed or fully outsourced models for that expertise.
And the demand in 2026 is shifting focus, too. It's not just about hiring staff anymore.
Correct. There will be very strong demand for outsourced entitlement and licensing management and, crucially, on-demand vendor negotiation expertise. But the most important shift is that the market is moving away from just selling a tool or an isolated audit. It's shifting towards providing outcomes-first services, where vendors guarantee a percentage of savings or manage continuous optimization as a fixed service.
That was a tremendous deep dive. We've covered the transition from vendor power plays to internal operational integration, and that fundamental shift in how we manage costs and compliance. 2026 will undoubtedly reward organizations that pivot now and adopt these proactive, integrated governance models. Let's quickly summarize the 5 critical priorities our sources recommend you focus on right now to start building that proactive stance.
Number 1, strengthening contract governance. You must actively protect your telemetry rights. You have to ensure your usage data can't be unilaterally weaponized against you in a renewal.
Second, building that single cohesive operating model that unifies ITAM, FinOps, and of course that emerging regulatory requirement of GreenOps into one coherent strategy.
Third, be proactive. Evaluate vendor consolidation risk across all your strategic suppliers. Map out your exposure to acquisitions now, not when the deal is announced.
Fourth, invest in identity-driven SaaS management. Treat your identity solution as the cost control plane to really choke off that entitlement waste.
And finally, number 5, developing robust AI workload cost governance frameworks. You need to manage that huge new source of spending volatility before it hits your budget.
That roadmap is crystal clear. But let me finish with a thought that kind of pulls everything together. This raises an important question.
Given that vendors are now embedding continuous compliance monitoring into their software, essentially using real-time consumption data to shape these increasingly crucial renewal negotiations, how will organizations ensure they maintain control and ownership over that usage data and the contract terms? The goal of the next 2 years, it might shift away from just compliance. It might shift toward maintaining sovereignty over your own operational data, preventing it from being unilaterally used against you during the most critical commercial moment you have.